thanks to all three of you for pulling together such an insightful presentation in record time. I think there's a lot that we've all learned from looking at this, and there are probably at least 10 papers that can be written out of all of this. So thanks, and open for questions.
It's a very small state. There are 81 constituencies are there. So why has gone to 5 places? Most of the people ask me this question, and we don't find any reason to give them. Can you suggest any bold and important reason?
I won't have. So I can try answering your question. Election Commission would basically say that it's security reasons and they have to deploy forces and other things. But Jill would know this much better. S.Y. Qureshi has been hinting at this for a long time now, that the number of phases, not just in Jharkhand but even in national election, should be reduced. We have much more sort of like forces at command. We also have more manpower. We also have more technological upgradation. There is no logical reason why should elections be going into these many phases. Election Commission doesn't explain us. I can only make up theories. Jill.
And to add to what are the disturbed constituencies? Is it 44 or something like that?
So disturbed in a sense like some classic Naxal affected areas, yes, 44 constituencies.
Right.
Yeah. That makes a difference. Well, I mean, obviously, when no particular incident happened, it's easy to say that, it's the phasing of the election that did it. But the fact of the matter is that we don't know whether the elections would have been any less peaceful had the number of phases been reduced. The Election Commission, it's one point on which it's not transparent, and actually for good reasons. It does not publicize its estimation of what they call vulnerability of seats. They have a matrix, they have criteria that they apply, they use data from a variety of sources, and they look at also the past of violence, in particular areas, and they make decision accordingly. So the process, as I know it, is not entirely automated, but it's based on a method which is applied, systematically, quite rigorously. And so I wouldn't dwell too much into conspiracy theories about the election commission trying somehow to influence the outcome by determining how long elections. I don't believe that to be the case. But something that also happened is that over time you also have an evolution of risks. Right, so Naxal violence in Jharkhand has considerably reduced compared to what the situation was in a few years ago. So maybe the software of the ACI needs to be updated a little bit.
And it shouldn't have been spread over a month. Even if they needed 3 or 4 phases, they could have easily mobilized troops and get done this within like 12 or 15 days.
Can I ask one more question?
We have a few more questions. I'll come back to you after that.
One of my questions is that out of the 6 districts that saw the Pathargarhi movement, the BJP actually ended up winning 4. And the reason given by a lot of on-ground reporters is that the BJP mobilized its ground cadre effectively and went and conducted great outreach campaigns that basically allayed the fears of the people in especially Simdega, Saraikela, Kharsawan, and one other region I can't remember. And the BJP has always, when it is in the opposition in a closely won election, it mobilizes ground cadre throughout the term of the government to have a lot of protests to make it clear that they are the other alternative. The JMM has its ground cadre, which is mainly ST, but this time the JMM appears to have made some inroads into other communities. How can the JMM best make a ground cadre in these other communities so that it isn't only an ST party anymore?
So the first part of your question, Simdega, JMM won all seats. Kharsawan, JMM won all seats. So I don't think BJP did really well in the Pathalgari movement areas. Uh, so I don't know where, like, this is the data, so I don't know where those reports are coming from.
So I was going by a report that I read by maybe mid-afternoon where the BJP was expected to lose badly but wasn't. It was actually ahead at some point.
Actually, in the last
Yeah, it just-
second half of the afternoon, the numbers went.
They went crazy.
Completely, yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. I mean, I wrote my first piece, by 6 p.m. and by 8 p.m. I had to redo.
Yeah, I actually got a call yesterday at 9:30 to change my numbers, right? Because it was just completely.
But I think, like, there is a larger question which you were asking, like, given all these problems, BJP should have done worse, right? And I think the answer to that would be, which is the second part of your question, that BJP still, like, in Jharkhand is the default option, right? If all other parties are contesting at one, like on one side, BJP becomes the default option. Second, I think they still have better ground troops, but none of this helps if, like, people are not happy with the government, right? And
I
that's the
believe
big
though this is the
message.
first time BJP is not the single largest party.
Yeah.
I believe, right? GMM is now the single largest party.
And something I should have put more emphasis on is that the political landscape in Jharkhand is remarkably fragmented. So if you look at the last 4 elections, this one included, the 3 major parties combined usually, cross basically, 50 to 60% of cumulative vote share. That basically means 4 voters out of 10 on average, opting for different parties than major players, which is really high.
So, to the presentation, can I conclude that despite of eccentric policies by Modi, still local development issues have the priority? Question mark. And how much impact does it create in the Delhi upcoming elections, especially in the urban middle class?
So on your first question, that's the conclusion that I draw. so I would invite you, of course, to draw it as well. But even if the BJP maintains its performance, and even if you don't really fundamentally know, what contributes, what are the factors that help the BJP to maintain, and what are, the factors that have contributed to, keep it down. It's very clear that there is no popular endorsement of the national policies that it's been pursuing. One could have imagined the BJP to be on a high after the Ayodhya verdict, after the Article 370 issue, which is still ongoing, with the CAA and so forth. What we see at best is no particular effect, which turns into a disadvantage then for the BJP if it chooses to insist on that. What was your second question?
How much impact does it create in the Delhi upcoming elections?
Yeah, well, it chips away, obviously, yet again, at this, myth of invincibility, and as, Rahul said, it basically demonstrates that states where the BJP is in power, it faces a lot of difficulties to retake. So it basically is not very well equipped to deal with anti-incumbency. I would think that the Delhi, it may have a boosting effect for the forces that mobilize against the BJP in Delhi. My sense is that the Delhi election will be fought more on national issues than Jharkhand, by virtue of being the capital, of course, but also given the context of police violence against students, the amplitude of the protest movement, which is still ongoing. I would expect those factors to have more importance than not just it's the Jharkhand results comes at the background, at the backdrop of a local context in Delhi. It may galvanize the opposition a little bit. What I found interesting, if I have a minute to do a parenthesis, is that the Congress was less greedy in their alliances than it has been in other alliances in prior elections. Usually where they claim a third of the seats, which is basically punching way above their weight. And so in this case, they have, assumed the role of second partner or second figure, choose the expression, and that has actually helped it to improve prospects overall. So let's see if that has an impact on decision of alliances in Delhi, particularly between our parties.
So just three quick points to this question. So first, I mean, I think we should
A little bit about historical context here, and I'm certainly not the first person to bring this up. The world today looks a lot like the early 70s in India. You have an unquestioned, charismatic, dominant national leader, and state elections have become competitive. We know what came after the early 70s wasn't necessarily positive. The big lessons for what we're seeing today is that when a national party is unable to compete on local issues, they often, and this is the same thing we saw with Indira Gandhi, they often start affecting the political financing system. So that was the banning of corporate donation in the early 70s, like electoral bonds today. They often start announcing a bunch of central schemes to develop a relationship between the central leader and the voter, right? And that's something Indira Gandhi did. That's something Modi has also done. It's quite amazing that even yesterday, when, before things got bad for the BJP, when BJP spokespeople were trying to talk about the government in Jharkhand, they kept on mentioning central schemes, right? I mean, that was basically the strategy, right? So the other thing, which is an empirical phenomenon, is that this is a state in which the BJP had gotten 56% of the vote share in the national election, and it's obviously dropped to 34, 35. We saw the same thing in Haryana. Delhi is a state where they got 57% in the national election, and historically the BJP has been shuffling right around 32 to 35. It's been in that stretch, right? And this at least gives some credibility to the fact that BJP will, because after the national election, none of us could possibly imagine a scenario where a party winning 50, 60% of the vote will drop back down to 30. But now we've seen it a couple of times, so it may happen in Delhi again. And just one minor thing when it comes to AAP and so on and so forth, I do think the national, one of the conversations going on the sidelines in the studios yesterday is that for people in Delhi, even I think some AAP workers are starting to pick up some religious polarization that has been picking up. Yeah, I mean, these are side conversations a lot of us have been having. And so that is impactful, right, for the upcoming state election.
Sorry, you had a question then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would we say that given that in areas where Modi and Shah went and campaigned, apparently BJP suffered a lot of losses in those areas. Would we say that the Modi wave, the magic of Modi, is coming to an end?
I mean, coming to an end is I don't think so. I think so this happens in newspaper analysis, which what we do is basically try to look at the strike rate or vote share where the leader visited, right? And so far we have no idea why any leader, be it Modi, Shah or Rahul Gandhi or anyone, visit a particular constituency. So unless we have any information on that, any analysis on the strike rate of like leader visiting and how that seat is voting is sort of like flawed at the moment.
The demographic effects are so strong in this election. If you are visiting more scheduled tribe areas, you'll see that effect, for instance.
And it's flow also because you pick two variables while there are many other factors. I mean, you need a multivariate analysis because, you need to figure out whether Modi and Shah hold rallies in safe seats or in seats that they need to conquer, in seats where the BJP is being challenged. And so I remember in the 2015 elections in Bihar, Modi campaigned exclusively in seats that the BJP was not holding, and just to give it a boost where it needed to conquer grounds. Congress, on the other hand, and that was the case in UP as well, keeps sending Rahul to safe seats, just to prevent any loss of face. And so you need to look at that, in conjunction of larger number of factors than just strike.
There is, of course, one can say that Modi's appeal has limits in state elections. So as far as national election goes, given there's no one to match him, he sort of pulls vote for BJP, an additional 8 to 10% vote at least in 2019. But when state elections come, the state leaders have to defend their track record. And there are perhaps better opposition leaders than BJP leaders in the state.
And therefore, the equation for the BJP becomes quite simple. It's either you answer to the mounting challenges by pushing the centralization and the concentration of power and the personalizations and the kind of politics that we have seen for the past few years, or you start giving some leeway to local leadership. And one could say that it's not exactly the practice of this party at the moment to losing control. So what we see is that the Modi image remains strong, but it's not a substitute for other more traditional forms of campaigning and for paying attention to local issues.
You want to say something?
Sir, I have three observations to make. Basic observation come question. My first observation is we are having an analysis, all my due respect to analysis. When there was a Modi wave, they were rising from 3 to 300, right? Nothing, no analysis worked. But now there is analysis, right? Now the change must convey, right? See, there's a peak for everything, right? This has to, everything that goes up must come down. I would say that logic works. You can't rise unlimited. Now, my second is management. Management, every party, every body, and every sector is failing in its management. You can manage indefinitely. This is not indefinite thing that you can manage. You can fail indefinitely. And where it loses, the opposition, the opponents always take advantage of the slackness. When you fail. My third is tactics. By now, the opposition, the opponents have studied their tactics and they manage their tactics. That's it. Thank you.
All 3 points, we agree. Yes, their peak goes up, it goes down, management was not well.
Because
yeah, you absolutely right.
they were having tactics after tactics and they couldn't manage it.
Yeah.
Now they can manage their tactics.
Absolutely. We agree with all
Now
this.
they will be able to manage their tactics.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, many things that we can discuss this later. The one thing to be cautious of on the urban-rural thing is that actually in the last 6 months, which is the sort of period that is shaping this election, rural consumption has dipped much more than urban. So I don't, so I think we have to think about this harder, because is it that the urban voter is more discerning on the issue of the economy and is punishing the BJP, even though they're not as badly affected as the rural voter? Is it that all these central schemes that are directly attributable to the BJP is sort of creating a cushion in
rural?
Or is it that the mobilization of the RSS, which I think is a factor we don't talk about enough,
That's right.
particularly on these sort of social issues, so the ability to run schools, hospitals, etc., and provide a social safety net in times of deep economic stress, actually helps in times of so I think that some of this needs to be understood better before we come to this.
Yeah, I have no idea what's
urban, rural, I think we don't understand it at all.
Yeah, and we were saying something very different in like in Haryana and Maharashtra, because it seemed like...
No, but something interesting is happening, because if you think back to the state elections in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan as well, the big thing was that the BJP is losing its hold over the urban vote.
Yes.
Right? So something, and that completely flips in a national election. So something about the urban voter is changing, and I don't know what that is. Like, again, we attributed it at the time to economic factors, but the big agriculture distress and linked to rural, and to the extent that the NSO survey also is anything to go by, rural India has in many ways suffered a lot more than urban India. So I don't know that it's the economy, I think something else is happening.
So my explanation is actually a far more structural thing, right? Which is that the logic of a party that's centralizing and hollowing out its state units, right? Which is the BJP, which is essentially what Congress had also done in the 70s, right? Is the idea that rather than emboldening local political actors who can benefit you and get to voters, you use the institutions of the state as a whole to do your bidding, right? So through political financing, through rather than, so a lot of political competition against Mayawati is all part of that strategy is altering the political financing system rather than like bringing in Dalit leaders to directly compete against Mayawati, right? So I think that that is a strategy, that sort of control does not work, I suspect, as well in urban areas. The kinds of state institutions you can use to directly reach an urban voter, your options are significantly less. You talked about central schemes, but there are many other things, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the other thing also is that don't forget that given the nature of public finances today, the BJP, the government of India has done a lot to eat into state finances, and these central schemes have further added to that problem, leaving very little space for states to do any of the things that they need to do on their own. So in some senses so you're directly attributing a lot of things to the central government at the cost of state governments,
That's
many
right.
of which were BJP governments.
That's
and
right.
BJP doesn't have many state schemes then to speak of or any innovation. So what was the popularity of Shivraj Chauhan, Raman Singh? It was all about innovation that they did in
And it was
the
completely
states,
eaten away.
which now has just dissipated. So I think that also plays into it.
I think that's actually the main role.
But it still doesn't explain the urban
Yeah.
issue.
Because if you look back, I mean, this is just, I mean, I think we're having said ourselves, everyone's listening, but if you look back at the 2019 national election, the other sort of surprising result was the extent to which the BJP was able to consolidate in rural areas. Right?
Yeah.
And so there is something that is going on organizationally, mobilization-wise, which is why I agree with your statement, right? Which is sort of the way in which state institutions and party cadre are being used are particularly effective in rural India.
Yeah.
And I think that's creating some kind of variation result that we don't really have a good handle on
No,
just
but
yet.
as you said, reformatory don't understand those phenomena very well, and I'd be worried to assume that there's a positive correlation between variations in electoral behavior and variations in economic indicators.
Yeah. No.
I mean, how an urban population resembles even a fairly marginal dip in
Sure, would be very different to what an urban. Yeah, no, exactly. But that's why to say that this is a consequence of the economy, maybe pushing it, stretching it a little bit. We simply actually don't know. So we have a whole new research project that we can start working on. Thank you. Thank you very much. And in 2020, with our research, we'll be able to answer the urban-rural challenge. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to all.
Merry
Merry
Yes,
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you.